Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going deep into the world of gastrointestinal drugs. It's a pretty fascinating market, actually.
Absolutely.
Our plan is to cut through all the complex data from a big market research report. We want to give you a clear, a concise picture of what's happening in this really critical sector.
Yeah.
Think of it like a shortcut. Get you informed quickly, point out the key trends, the big numbers you need to know without getting bogged down.
And we're using a great source for this. It's a detailed forecast from cognitive market research, really granular stuff.
Right.
Country-level data from 2021, looking ahead to 2025, and then projecting all the way out to 2033, complete with growth rates and everything. So this deep dive should really help connect the dots for you.
Okay, let's unpack the big picture first. Globally, the gastrointestinal drug market, it's showing some really remarkable, consistent growth.
Right.
Back in 2021, the revenue was, over $36.5 billion?
That's right, $36.5 billion.
And that's projected to climb. Over $41.4 billion by 2025. And then, get this, hitting an impressive $53.21 billion by 2033.
Wow.
Which means a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of about 3.17%. Pretty steady over more than a decade.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here really is that this isn't just about, abstract large numbers floating around.
Right.
This consistent growth, it signals a profound ongoing global demand for GI health solutions. It reflects more diagnoses maybe of things like IBD, G or TRD, IBS.
Things people are dealing with more often.
Exactly. Plus, changing diets, aging populations worldwide. These trends are really shaping things for pharmaceutical innovation, even like national healthcare priorities. It's big.
So where is this growth actually happening? Where's it strongest? Let's zoom in a bit, maybe start with North America.
Okay.
Because that region is still the dominant player, right? Its market value was already over $14.6 billion in 2021.
Huge.
And by 2033, it's projected to top $20.4 billion. Still growing at a solid 2.78% CAGR.
Still solid growth, yeah.
And within North America, no surprise, the U.S. is the giant. It's expected to grow its market from $11.5 billion back in 2021 to over $15.8 billion by 2033.
$15.8 billion. Just the U.S.
Just the U.S. But Canada and Mexico aren't small either. Canada's market grows from $1.7 billion to nearly $2.8 billion. Yeah. Mexico from $1.3 billion up to $1.89 billion. Significant expansion there, too.
So this raises that important question, doesn't it? Why North America? What factors are keeping it in the lead like this?
Yeah, what's the secret sauce?
Well, the report points to a few key things. Obviously, a well-established healthcare infrastructure helps. High rates of specialized diagnostic testing, getting those diagnoses. A lot of R&D investment from the pharma companies headquartered there.
Right.
And maybe crucially, a large insured population. People have access to these, often quite advanced therapies. So it's mature, yes, but still consistently growing.
Okay, so let's hop across the Atlantic, Europe. How does that picture look?
Europe's showing steady growth too, but maybe with some interesting pockets.
Yep. Okay. The overall European market was valued at nearly $10.6 billion in 2021, and that's growing to $14.8 billion by 2033. The CAGR there is about 2.77%. Very close to North America's rate.
Very similar pace, yeah.
And the big economies, UK, France, Germany, they're all showing consistent growth. They make up a big chunk of that market. Italy, Russia, Spain, too.
Standard players.
But here's where it gets, I think, really noteworthy.
Oh, okay.
The highest EAGR in the entire European region belongs to the category labeled Rest of Europe.
The rest of Europe. Interesting.
Yeah. This segment jumped from almost $2 billion in 2021 to a projected $3.28 billion by 2033. That's a 4.405% CAGR. Much faster than the Western European markets.
Wow, 4.4%. That's quite a difference. So if we connect that to the bigger picture, what does that growth in the rest of Europe tell us?
What's going on there?
Well, the report suggests it's likely being fueled by increased access to specialized care, getting advanced treatments into markets that were maybe previously underserved or are developing rapidly within the continent.
So emerging markets within Europe itself.
Exactly. It points to the market reach broadening out, maybe new investment opportunities popping up as healthcare systems in those areas evolve. It's not just the traditional powerhouses anymore.
Okay, now let's talk about the real fast lane. Asia Pacific.
Yeah, yes.
APAC. This region is a proper growth engine. Started at $6.88 billion in 2021, right, but it's projected to really leap to over $11 billion by 2033.
$11 billion. Big jump.
Huge jump. And the CAGR reflects that, 4.316%. That's noticeably higher than North America or Europe.
We're seeing a real shift in global market share here.
Definitely a shift.
Now, China and Japan, as you'd expect, are major players. China goes from $2.16 billion to nearly $3.3 billion. Japan from $1.7 billion to over $2.5 billion. Big markets, steady growth.
Right.
But the real accelerants here are phenomenal. India. Look at India. It stands out with an impressive 5.256% CAGR.
5.2%.
Yeah, more than doubling its market size from $1.1 billion to over $2 billion. Singapore is also a fast grower, nearly doubling its market too.
Incredible growth rates. We also see South Korea, Australia, Taiwan contributing. But then you have Southeast Asia as a whole growing by over 75%.
Wow.
And the absolute highest KGR of all regions we've looked at belongs to the rest of APAC category. It rocketed from just $0.128 billion to $0.429 billion. That's a staggering 6.073% CGR.
6% CGR. What's fascinating there is just the sheer speed and scale of growth in some of these APAC markets, especially India and that rest of APAC group.
Right. What's driving that kind of acceleration?
The report puts it down to a combination of factors. Massive demographic shifts, for one. Rapid urbanization changing lifestyles and diets.
Okay.
Significant improvements in healthcare infrastructure, more hospitals, more clinics, better access, and importantly, rising disposable incomes. People can actually afford, and therefore demand, more advanced pharma solutions.
So it's a perfect storm for growth almost.
Pretty much. It's a really dynamic landscape. The potential for new companies, new treatments to enter those markets is substantial.
Okay. So moving on, what about South America? How does that region fit in?
South America shows a picture of, I'd say, consistent and healthy expansion. Not quite the fireworks of APAC, but solid.
Okay. The market there reached nearly $2.5 billion in 2021. The forecast takes it to over $4 billion in 2033.
Decent growth.
And Brazil leads the way in the region, growing from $0.84 billion to over $1.3 billion. Argentina and Colombia also show strong growth. Their markets together are expanding by over 70% by 2033.
Significant increases.
Peru and Chile show growth too, maybe a bit more modest, but still steady increases.
Yeah, so South America, while it isn't exploding like parts of Asia, its consistent expansion is important. It reflects that ongoing build-out of healthcare access.
Right.
A growing middle class demanding better care. The report specifically notes increased awareness of GI diseases and better diagnostic capabilities as key drivers. So it suggests a gradual but important maturation of those markets.
Makes sense. Okay, finally, let's touch on the Middle East and Africa, kind of emerging opportunities there.
Exactly. Emerging, but definitely showing potential.
The Middle East market was about $1.35 billion in 2021, and it's projected to rise to $1.665 billion in 2033. Not huge growth, but steady. Key players are Saudi Arabia and the UAE, plus others like Qatar, Turkey, Egypt contributing.
Okay.
Africa, meanwhile, it expanded from just under $0.7 billion in 2021 to hit $1.165 billion by 2033. But look at the CAGR, 3.649%. That's quite notable.
Higher than North America or Europe's overall, the CGR, exactly.
Yeah. And within Africa, Nigeria and South Africa are leading the charge. Their combined markets are growing significantly. It really highlights the emerging needs and maybe opportunities across the continent.
And this brings up that question again, right? These regions, the Middle East and especially Africa, they're smaller in total market size right now compared to the big players.
Smaller, yeah.
But those robust growth rates, particularly that 3.6% in Africa, they suggest potential future market shifts down the line. The report links this to things like increasing urbanization, efforts to combat infectious gut diseases, which are still a big issue there, and generally improving healthcare access. These are areas of increasing medical need that definitely warrant attention.
What an incredible journey we've just taken, really mapping out this global gastrointestinal drug market.
It really is a global story.
We've unpacked its huge scale, that consistent growth, but also pinpointed those surprising hotspots, the really rapid expansion in places like Asia Pacific and parts of Eastern Europe.
Yeah, and I think the key takeaway here is pretty clear. The consistent growth across such diverse regions, it just underscores this ongoing and actually growing global demand for GI health solutions.
That's undeniable.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, these numbers, they aren't just market figures. They're reflecting significant societal factors changes in how we live, how we eat, growing awareness about health.
And the importance of gut health specifically.
Exactly. The increasing recognition that gut health is really core to overall well-being worldwide, that's filtering through.
So thinking about these projections then, what new innovations, maybe in drug development or even public health initiatives, do you, listening, think will emerge? How will we meet this growing global demand, especially in those fastest growing regions we talked about?
That's the big question for the future, isn't it?
definitely something to think about. We really encourage you to keep mulling over these patterns, these growth hotspots, and what they might signal for the future of health, not just in GI, but around the world.
It's funny, isn't it? We don't really think much about our digestive system, not until it, well, kicks up a fuss. But it's so incredibly central to just feeling well day to day. So today, we're diving deep into something huge, something that impacts millions, maybe billions globally, but doesn't always grab the headlines: the gastrointestinal drugs market.
That's right. And in this deep dive, we're going to unpack, the big forces pushing its growth, some of the roadblocks it's hitting, and honestly, some really exciting new stuff on the horizon. We'll pull out the key insights from the research you've gathered, give you that comprehensive picture, basically a shortcut to getting up to speed.
Okay, let's jump right in. Our sources really hammer home one fundamental point to start. The sheer number of people dealing with GI problems is, well, it's soaring worldwide.
It really is quite striking. And what's fascinating is just how many different conditions we're talking about. The research specifically flags things like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, that is,
Yeah.
and GERD, acid reflux, essentially. Plus, chronic inflammatory conditions like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. They're all significantly on the rise.
And it's not just happening out of the blue, is it? It feels like our modern lives are playing a big part. The data points towards, well, things like our diets changing, maybe not always for the better. Stress, too, just the constant pressure, sedentary lifestyles, that's in there. And yeah, increased use of tobacco and alcohol seem to be contributing factors as well.
Absolutely. And there's another angle, too. If you look at developed countries, you've got aging populations. And as people get older, well, their digestive systems often just don't work quite as efficiently,
Yeah.
which makes them more vulnerable to these kinds of chronic GI issues.
Wow. So this is way beyond just, occasional indigestion. It's a massive healthcare need, and that's what's driving the demand for all sorts of treatments, right? I mean, the sources mention everything from proton pump inhibitors. Those are the big guns for acid reduction. Yeah.
That's right, for chronic conditions especially.
And antacids, sure, but also laxatives, antiemetics for nausea, anti-inflammatory drugs. It's really become a core part of healthcare for so many people. Okay, so the need is clearly exploding. But the story doesn't stop there. It seems like the science is really racing to keep up, maybe even get ahead. Our sources talk a lot about innovation, breakthroughs, driving growth. What's really catching your eye there?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The pace of technological and pharmaceutical advances is pretty remarkable. So you ask, what kind of innovations? Well, the sources really highlight biologics and targeted therapies. Now, these are complex drugs, often derived from living cells, and they aim at very specific parts of the immune system.
So more precise.
Exactly. They're showing fantastic results in clinical trials, especially for those tough inflammatory conditions we mentioned, like Crohn's and colitis, often with fewer side effects than older, broader treatments.
Yeah.
That's huge for patients dealing with these devastating conditions.
And it's not just those big, complex biologics, right? I saw mentions of other cutting-edge stuff, too. Things like personalized medicine, tailoring treatments, and therapies based on the microbiome. That sounds fascinating.
Absolutely. Personalized medicine, tailoring treatment to your specific genetic profile or disease characteristics, that's a huge area. And the microbiome. Yeah, therapies aiming to sort of rebalance the gut's bacteria. These are opening up completely new avenues for effectiveness and safety.
Hmm. And what about just making the drugs easier to take? Does that play a role?
Oh, definitely. That's actually crucial. Advancements in drug delivery systems. Think like oral dissolving tablets or capsules designed to release the medicine at just the right time or place in the gut. These things make a massive difference in patient adherence, people actually taking their meds consistently, which, for chronic stuff, is absolutely vital.
It really sounds like a lot of momentum, lots of investment fueling this.
For sure. The research points to, big increases in R&D spending by pharmaceutical companies and significant government support in many cases, too. It all leads to this expanding pipeline of new, innovative GI treatments coming through.
Okay, so we have innovation, but what about access? Are these new treatments affordable?
That's a key question. And this is where biosimilars come into the picture. These are essentially highly similar approved versions of existing biologic drugs, but often at a lower cost. So the rise of biosimilars plus improved versions of older drugs is genuinely helping to make treatments more accessible and affordable, getting them to more people who need them.
So a lot of positive momentum, innovation, growing need. But there's always a but, isn't there? It can't all be smooth sailing. The sources must mention some challenges, some hurdles. What's the biggest one?
Yeah, there are definitely challenges. And the major one, the one that comes up again and again, is the regulatory side of things.
Yeah.
Getting these new drugs approved, it's a really complex, demanding process.
Right, the FDA, the EMA in Europe.
Exactly. They require huge amounts of data, proof of safety, proof of efficacy, and generating that data, running the trials, it just takes a very long time, and it's incredibly expensive.
So I'm guessing that can really slow things down, especially maybe for like smaller companies trying to innovate.
Precisely. It can be a massive barrier, especially for those small or mid-sized companies. They might have a brilliant idea, a potential breakthrough, but the sheer cost and uncertainty of getting through that regulatory maze, it can be really daunting. Plus, the rules themselves can change. You need ongoing studies. It adds layers of delay and risk.
So for you, listening at home, what does that actually mean? It sounds like even though the demand is growing and the science is advancing, getting access to the very latest options might still be tricky because of these hurdles.
Unfortunately, yes, access can remain limited, or at least delayed, because of these really stringent entry barriers. It's this constant balancing act, isn't it? Ensuring safety versus speeding up innovation.
Okay, let's pivot then and look towards the future. What are the big trends shaping where this market is headed? Some of this sounds pretty next level.
It really does. One trend that's getting a lot of attention is the focus on microbiome-based therapeutics.
Hmm.
The trillions of bacteria living in our gut, we're realizing just how vital they are. For digestion, sure, but also for controlling inflammation, regulating the immune system, even how we process medications.
Right, the microbiome is everywhere in health news now. But maybe connect the dots for us a bit more. How exactly does an imbalance there lead to something like IBS? And what are these therapies actually doing?
Good question. So there's more and more evidence linking imbalances in that gut bacteria, they call it dysbiosis, to conditions like IBS, even GERD, inflammatory bowel disease too. So companies are investing heavily in ways to restore a healthy balance. This could mean advanced probiotics, specially engineered microbes, even fecal microbiota transplants.
Whoa, okay. That's literally transplanting gut bacteria.
Essentially, yes. Taking healthy bacteria from a donor to repopulate a patient's gut. The goal across all these approaches is to fix the underlying imbalance in the gut environment, aiming for more sustainable, long-term relief.
Fascinating. Really like fine-tuning our internal ecosystem. What's the other major trend we should be watching?
The other big one is the continuing shift towards biologics and, importantly, biosimilars for those chronic GI conditions. See, historically, the mainstays were often drugs like corticosteroids or aminosalicylates, and while they helped, they often weren't great for long-term control and could bring some pretty serious side effects. Quality of life could really suffer.
So biologics offer a better path for managing these long-term chronic problems.
Generally, yes. They offer much more targeted treatments. Think things like TNF inhibitors or interleukin blockers. These go after specific proteins, specific pathways that drive the inflammation. It's much more precise.
Like hitting a specific target instead of a scattergun approach.
Exactly. And that translates into better symptom control, fewer flare-ups, and just a better quality of life for patients. And again, biosimilars are critical here. As patents on the original biologics expire, biosimilars offer more affordable options, making these advanced therapies accessible to more people.
Wow. What an incredible journey we've taken through the gastrointestinal drugs market. We started with just the sheer scale of need driven by, well, how we live and our aging populations. Then we saw the amazing science, the biologics, the personalized medicine, navigated those tricky regulatory pathways, and looked ahead to the really exciting frontiers like tinkering with our microbiome and the ongoing move to more targeted treatments.
It really underscores how vital this sector is, doesn't it? It's where science and this fundamental human need meet. And it's constantly evolving, constantly trying to find better answers for millions and millions of people around the world.
It definitely makes you pause and think about just the incredible complexity inside us and how science keeps pushing those boundaries. Thinking about how tightly our daily habits link to these complex gut issues. And now science is literally aiming to rebalance our internal ecosystems. It really poses a question, doesn't it? What other inner frontiers, maybe beyond the gut, are waiting for science to explore and potentially rebalance for our health? Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Until next time, keep learning and stay curious.